All right, everybody, while we are waiting for you to sit down, you follow such instructions so well. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Carrie Morrison, and I'm going to be moderating this event tonight. We're very excited. We're so excited to be here at TV City. I have driven by this place, 100 times a year on my way to the farmer's market or the Grove, and they have recently started to open up this studio, these stages to the public, thanks to Adina Bly. I don't know who she is, or community affairs person. And maybe we can turn off the music too. And what I didn't get to go on the tour. Who got to go on the tour today? Okay, cool. I really wanted to go, but I wasn't able to pull it off being the moderator. But I understand that this is where the Carol Burnett show was filmed. So I always remember it was like 8 o'clock on Sunday night or whatever, and The Price is Right. So we're channeling a little bit of Hollywood history here, and we're very, very grateful to TV City to have us here today. I also want to thank, right off the bat, in addition to TV City, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, who has partnered with us to pull this event together. We have been working on this since June. So Steve Nissen, who I think is here, is the CEO, and Aaron Taxi and Dylan Kendall. We've been the team who's been imagining this afternoon for you and working really hard to bring this to you. So we could not do this without the Hollywood Chamber, and we appreciate members of the Hollywood Chamber who are here tonight and value that partnership. So the first thing I'm going to do is we have two special guests who are going to do a quick hello to you. The first one is Councilmember Katie Yaroslavsky from Council District 5. Hollywood Forward covers 2 council districts, mostly 13, but also Council District 5. So I would like to invite the councilwoman up here, or she may be behind me, just to welcome you all and say hello. Katie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the Hollywood Chamber and Hollywood Forward for bringing us all together today. This is exciting. Welcome to Council District 5, to all the business owners, service providers, residents, partners in government philanthropy. It takes all of us to make this happen. And this room really represents a cross-section of our community, a powerful cross-section of our community. It's only through this kind of collaboration that we can make meaningful progress in addressing homelessness. We know that this is affecting all of us. For those living on the streets, it's a daily fight for survival without the security, safety, or dignity that housing provides. And for businesses and residents of Los Angeles who do have houses, it's a visible reminder of a system that is failing too many people every single day. And we all feel its impact in our neighborhoods, our public spaces, and our sense of community is impacted and shaken greatly by it. But we know that hoping the problem goes away is not going to make the problem go away. It's not a solution. We're working on bold, compassionate, and decisive action. And we've seen proof that quickly moving people off the streets and into housing works. This year we saw the first double-digit decrease in homelessness in nearly a decade as programs like Inside Safe and other encampment to home operations ramped up. In Council District 5, there was a 15% decrease in street homelessness, despite a serious lack of interim housing. So when I took office, Council District 5, which goes from the 405 to Western, Mulholland in the north down to Culver City, we had 0 interim beds for general population adults, which meant that if you were unhoused between the ages of 18 and 55 and you didn't have a child and you weren't a veteran, we did not have a bed for you. We still don't have a bed for you. We have 99 beds total, and they're all for veterans, senior veterans, or families. So we're changing that. That is the #1 priority of my office. In the next 6 to 10 months, we're going to have 220 interim beds brought online across the district, which is really going to help us with resolving encampments in a humane and thoughtful way, bringing people inside, showing housed residents that you can clear encampments and provide safe and secure housing for people in a way that improves the whole community. And those of you up in Hollywood who have been doing this work a long time know that that's the case, and it can be done well and right. And so we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're doing what already has been proven to work. I want to acknowledge Paul Cho from LifeArc, who's our partner on one of our projects. It's called Midvale. It's going to be 33 interim beds. They do great work, and we're proud to work with them. The other thing that we're focused on is knowing that interim housing isn't just the right thing to do, it's required under law. And I think with the Supreme Court decision, there's a lot of confusion about what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't be doing. As many of you probably, if not all of you know, the city of LA has entered into a legally binding settlement with the LA Alliance case, and there's other settlements that obligate us to do certain things around interim housing. And this settlement is enforceable regardless of whether or not the Supreme Court has ruled that we have as cities discretion to remove encampments. So while there are these broader legal and policy discussions underway, our commitment to Angelenos and our commitment to building interim housing isn't optional, it's required, and it's really important and the right thing to do to making meaningful progress on solving homelessness. But at the same time, the recent Supreme Court case and the governor's executive order both mark significant turning points, I think, as a city. And we know that there's a real need to be proactive around this issue because of what the ruling is going to mean for cities across the state, what it's already meaning for cities across the state. Without leadership from the state, frankly, we risk seeing cities engage in a race to the bottom, passing their own citywide camping bans and pushing homeless people into neighboring cities. LA can't become the catch-all for people displaced by these policies, and so we need a comprehensive plan that ensures we're balancing compassion and accountability in a way that really improves safety and quality of life for housed people and unhoused people. And so that's what we're collectively as a council, in partnership with the mayor's office and the city attorney's office, grappling with right now. And making meaningful progress is going to take all of us, the business community, residents, service providers, partners in philanthropy. We have to come together in conversations like this one and figure out how we're going to move forward as community together. We need a collective push to get these projects built, to get thoughtful policies passed, because they're going to benefit all of us in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. I'm really looking forward to undertaking this important work with each and every one of you. I'm joined here by Zach Warma, who's my homelessness and housing policy deputy, and other folks from my team. So I hope you'll come say hi and we can figure out how we're going to work with you. Thank you very much. Welcome to Council District 5.
Thank you, Councilmember Yaroslavsky. We are grateful for your leadership in trying to forge this important frontier of interim housing in your district. I'm also very pleased to introduce Councilmember Hugo Soto Martinez from Council District 13, who will also extend a couple minutes of greeting to you all. Councilmember.
Thank you so much, Carrie. It's always good to see you here. I know you've been at this issue for so many years. I do want to thank a few folks. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I see my friend Steve Nissen in the back. Thank you for helping put this together. Also, Hollywood Forward. Brittany Wiseman is in the back, running a tight ship. Okay, I see some fans for Brittany. Great. Television City for hosting us here today. Councilwoman Yaroslavsky for welcoming us into her district. And of course, all the speakers and participants and the folks that helped put this together. It's always good to come to these events. We've Hollywood Forward and the Hollywood Chamber and many different groups in Hollywood have put together quite a few of these events over the last 2 years that I've been sort of in the public eye, and I think it's always a good place where we can come, have conversation, recenter the work that we're doing, and just try to have a path going forward. I think that's always super important. Today we're going to hear from many different experts, folks that are way more on the ground, way more knowledgeable than many folks, and they're and they work. And homelessness is such a diverse issue. We're going to hear from folks that are real experts in their different craft. We're going to talk about what are the best practices we've discovered in Hollywood, in the city, innovative ideas that can overcome the barriers that we're facing, because we know there's so many barriers in this issue, and also how the business community and residents can work together with government to solve these issues. I think it is such a huge crisis that it's really going to require all of us to, as the mayor says, right, to lock arms and really work on this. But before we dive into that, I do also want to be very honest, right? Even though we are making progress, the challenges are real. I mean, this is without a doubt the number one issue for Angelenos, right? For many years, it was traffic, and now it's homelessness and housing. And we know those two issues are very much intertwined. And just last week, there was an LA Times article that came out really highlighting a study that said it's going to take about $20 billion for us to get out of this crisis. That's billion with a B. So it's a lot of money, a lot of investment. But we know that the reason it's going to take this kind of level of effort is because this crisis has been decades in the making. We can look back to the 1970s with the Lanterman and Petraeus Short Act that essentially annihilated our mental health institutions. We can look at redlining, lack of densification of many of our city. I mean, it's going to take an unprecedented coordination in order for us to get out of this. But at the same time, I continue to wake up every day being optimistic, because not only do I have a really great team who is here today. If you want to just raise your hands and say hello. We have Anais, who's a field deputy in Hollywood, Hector, who's our deputy district director, Kylie Jansen, who works on the field in Hollywood, and Nick, who's videoing me right now. He's our comms director. But we have an amazing team, but not just the team here, but also the folks that are in this room who care deeply and passionate about this issue. And sometimes we disagree on the approach, but we certainly all agree that we need to make sure people are housed and they're being taken care of as if they were our very own family members. I think we can all agree with that. But and this coordination, I believe, has been a little bit unprecedented. I think we're all sort of coming together. We have council offices that are not fighting or debating, which side of Hollywood or which side of Melrose that unhoused person are. I can't tell you how many times we have worked with all our bordering council offices to make sure that we solve the issue. It doesn't matter where that homeless person is. We work with the supervisor offices. We have weekly and monthly calls with them. The coordination with the mayor has been really great. She's been an amazing partner, and for the first time in many years, homelessness actually dropped in the city of Los Angeles. We work with Department of Public Health, Department of Mental Health. We work with the LAPD, the 40-plus service providers in District 13, the city clerks, and folks to execute the contracts, and businesses and nonprofits. We're really trying to collaborate with every single person in the district. But it's not the coordination we had in the past, but we have it now, and we're improving it as we continue to work together. But we know that we need to continue to build more permanent supportive housing, more interim housing like the one we just opened a few weeks ago at the Jan Clayton Center in East Hollywood. It's something that I was very proud that we opened, 52 beds, and there's been a noticeable difference in that area. But one thing that we won't get a chance to talk about today is how we stop the flow of homelessness, right? We know that 73% of the renters in the city are rent burdened, meaning that they spend more than 30% of their income on rent. We know that 1 out of every 10 renters spends 90% of their income on rent. Right, these are the folks who most likely will be potentially the future people living in the street. But that is for another conversation that we're working very diligently. But I do believe we have the tools, right? It's a new tool that we have at our disposal. But like any new tool, right? You're not going to be an expert when you first pick up that tool. You'll get better at it over time. But I feel, again, even though the challenge is hard, I continue to remain incredibly optimistic about this. And the day I become frustrated, I will let you know, but it's not today. It's not today, because I think we're doing the right things. And so thank you so much again, Carrie, for everything. And looking forward to hearing the discussion. I'll stay for a little bit, and we might agree or disagree, but again, we all want to solve this issue. And so, let's get to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. Just a preface as to why we chose this topic. We started working on this perhaps 5 months ago, and again, as we involved our friends at the Chamber, trying to pick what is the salient issue right now that nobody's really focusing on, and we landed on interim housing because increasingly that is becoming a viable solution to really try to make an impact on our situation right now. And you're reaching for the clicker. So we're going to, before we meet our esteemed panelists who are going to start to introduce you to some of the innovations in the interim housing space, we thought we would tee up for you what this looks like for the city. I will tell you, interestingly enough, we thought, well, let's come up with a goal at this event where we would say, could we reduce street homelessness in Los Angeles by 50% in time for the Olympics? Because the Olympics is a good deadline, kind of gives you a sense of urgency. And then we came to find out that that number actually is very, very close to a requirement that is actually facing the city by virtue of the settlement agreement associated with what you may have heard of as the Alliance lawsuit. So we're going to first ask Aaron Taxi from the Chamber to give you just what I would call an amuse-bouche into understanding what it is that the Alliance settlement is requiring of the city, because it's a very real goal. And then Louis Abramson, our favorite rocket scientist, is going to work through some of the data to show you how challenging this is going to be for us to meet that goal. So let me start with Aaron.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Carrie. On behalf of the Chamber, I do want to just give special thanks to our partners at Hollywood Forward. Thank you so much to Brittany and team for everything you did. Thank you to our honorable council members, to TVC, and I do just want to give special recognition. I'm the one up here from the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce speaking, but I want to give special recognition to all of my colleagues here who played such a critical role. Our President and CEO, Steve Nissen, is here. Our Vice President of Brand and Strategy, Dylan Kendall, is here. And I also want to thank my colleagues towards the back, Brian Cole, Chloe Kim, and not here, Anna Martinez, for everything y'all did to make today such a success. And I see the chair of our board of directors, Sarah Zarel, is also here. Sarah's been an enormous supporter of our rolling up our sleeves and diving deep into these issues. And we're excited for this to be not just a one-off conversation, but the first of many, and hopefully something that's going to lead to some real good work down the line. So I've been asked to speak for a few minutes and explain the LA Alliance case and settlement. And I'll try to keep it as followable as possible, and since we're on a tight time frame, brief. In its simplest terms, the city and county of Los Angeles reached a settlement in response to a major lawsuit where they made tangible legal commitments on how to reduce street homelessness over the next few years. The reason why I'm up here talking about it, as Carrie alluded to, and why you will likely hear it referred to throughout the program, is because whether or not you support any given specific element of the settlement, it is effectively, at this point, the North Star for policymaking on this issue on reducing street homelessness in LA. So what is the Alliance case? In March of 2020, a group called the LA Alliance for Human Rights filed a lawsuit against the city and county of Los Angeles over their handling of the homelessness crisis. This case is still active today. It has over 700 filings so far, but it has led to 3 important settlements that are shaping our approach to homelessness, our policymaking. The first settlement required that the city provide 6,700 beds for individuals experiencing homelessness who were living near freeway overpasses. That goal has been met. The second settlement was with the county, and it focuses on providing additional services such as 3,000 new beds for mental health and substance abuse treatment. And the county is also increasing its outreach teams on the ground and has committed to better coordination more closely with individual cities throughout the county. The third settlement, and what we believe is the most significant, especially in relation to what we are discussing today, is with the city of Los Angeles. This settlement was reached in 2022, and it requires that the city create new shelter or housing for 60% of its unsheltered homeless population who are appropriate for city shelters. Based on the 2022 homelessness count, this translates to about 13,000 new units of housing or shelter by around May of 2027. Each city council district is committed to specific reductions proportional to that 2022 homeless count. So what does that mean for Hollywood specifically? City Council District 4, which includes northern portions of Hollywood in addition to some eastern and valley neighborhoods, is expected to add 400 more units. City Council District 5, where we're sitting right now, but also spans outside of Greater Hollywood to the west and south, is expected to achieve 314 more units. And City Council District 13, which includes the heart of Hollywood and the majority of both the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and Hollywood Forward's membership, is expected to add 1,026 more units. Judge David O. Carter and an appointed overseer routinely monitor the progress of the city and the county, and they are subject to hefty penalties if they do not meet their commitments. So we're all kind of rowing in the same direction on this and are really trying to move towards the same goal with a shared understanding. Now, here's where we stand today. As of March 31st of this year, only about 3,000 of the required units were open citywide. Another 5,600 are in the pipeline, leaving us with about 4,300 units yet to be started. So there's a long road ahead here. But that's exactly why we are all here today. We are looking forward to our Chamber of Commerce and the Hollywood business community being partners in not just helping us achieve a legal obligation, but a shared purpose to make Hollywood and our city live up to its potential as we approach the 2028 Olympics and beyond. So thank you so much for being with us. Take care.
Aaron, you did a good job digesting that into digestible sound bites. So let me turn this over now to Louie, who's going to get ready for the data dump. All right, you might want to take notes.
Thank you, Carrie. Let's see here. Okay, great. Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Louie Abramson. Thanks, Joan. I am a senior physical science adjunct at the RAND Corporation, and I'm also the chair of the board for the SELA Neighborhood Homeless Coalition. And while these esteemed organizations have affected what I'm going to say today, I am speaking for myself. All right, so as Carrie just said, the name of the game today is having unsheltered homelessness in the city of Los Angeles by 2028. And standing between you and people who really know what they're talking about is a bunch of math, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of that math. But as the council member said, before we look forward to 2028, we really do have to look back. And the most important thing to remember about our past is that for the past 10 plus years, 3,600 people per year have become homeless in LA County, but we've only built 2,500 permanent and interim beds to support that group. So we've been running an 1,100 bed deficit for over a decade. And what that translates to in the city of Los Angeles is now a 29,000 bed debt. When we talk about there being 29,000 unsheltered people, what we really mean is we are missing at least 29,000 assets that could be used to bring them indoors. So our goal when it comes to cutting this number in half in 4 years is, there we go, is to bring 15,000 more people indoors above the system's current performance. To do that in 4 years, that's 3,700 people more than the 20,000 some odd people that the system is already doing. Okay, so how might we do this? Aaron set me up well talking about the Alliance settlement. We're already committed to delivering a bunch of assets to meet Judge Carter's mandate. There are at least 5,600 of those as of May in the pipeline to achieve that, so that's going to help. There's also regular old affordable housing, which thankfully we've really increased the production of in Los Angeles in recent years. Not all of those assets are going to go to unhoused folk, but some could. Everybody here knows about Inside Safe, which has brought motel rooms into the continuum in a new, robust way. That program might grow as we explore master leasing and other financing options. And of course, the city of Los Angeles has some slack in its existing interim housing system, about 20%. So what I'm going to do now is run through the best case scenario of how these assets add to this goal of having unsheltered homelessness in 4 years. Okay, so the Alliance assets. Okay. That's what they're going to do. They're going to bring us to maybe 9,000 beds short of our 15,000 person goal. If we add to that a modest amount of our current affordable housing production, 15% of the assets, if those we bring into this work, we'll get to maybe within 6,000 beds. If inside safe, the mayor's motel program doubles, which I think is an optimistic expectation, but something that might happen with an influx of new resources. We're coming to within 5,000 beds and getting very close to the settlement's goal. And then, of course, once we introduce our existing unused interim housing beds, we get very, very close, 1,300 people away from our goal, but we have to remember critically that beds are not people. If I press, and that should happen right now. Okay, beds are not people. It's neither desirable nor possible to make sure every single bed is filled with a human being every night. We need some slack for emergencies, if there's inclement weather, earthquakes, etc. So if you assume reasonable occupancy fractions, like a market rate 95% occupancy for permanent supportive housing assets, we're short by roughly 5,000 people, not beds, from our 15,000 person goal. Now, this is what's definitely on the books. There are a couple of other forthcoming programs that are nascent, and so I didn't include them in this. But particularly, we all know about ED1 here, the mayor's streamlining of assets. There are 18K units that have been permitted. If we clear the decks and use as many of those as we can for this work, we'll get really close. Prop 1 just passed. LA City is due about 3,000 beds from that reform that just passed at the state level. If somehow those come online, in the best of best cases scenario, we might actually hit our goal. But it's very important to think about two things here. One, there's only one best case scenario. That's why it's the best. So just probabilistically, there are more ways we can not do this well than do this well. And one of the key variables that I've assumed here is that inflow doesn't get worse, that more people don't become homeless every year than are already becoming homeless. So it's not just numerically likely that this is going to be what actually happens. And there are important programmatic headwinds that we're facing too. Housing permitting is actually declining in the city of Los Angeles. We are not gearing up to build an unprecedented supply of housing, even though affordable housing is high. That is not going to alleviate the rent pressures that Councilmember Soto Martinez talked about before, which is not going to help the inflow problem. Also, ED1, that program that I said had just permitted 18,000 affordable units, it's been pared back. And we're not going to be able to use the entire land area of Los Angeles for these critical units that could go into this work. And lastly, there is the grants pass decision, which, if our neighboring municipalities don't play ball nicely with us, might mean that they see our above average level of interim housing. LA City has 70% of the county's interim housing assets as an opportunity to house their unsheltered people, which might increase inflow pressures and make our job harder. So what am I saying here? In sum, it is highly unlikely to me that the things that we currently know are going to happen are going to get us where we need to be in 4 years. There just aren't enough beds, irrespective of the service levels, the money, the regulatory regime, getting these things to actually go up on time. So given the time horizon, it looks pretty clear to me that interim housing is going to be a key component of closing that gap. And of course, this is what our panel is going to talk to you about right now. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope we all learned a lot today, and I'm as excited as you are to hear what comes next.
Wow, Louis, you blew through that in record time. Thank you. I understand that Louis' slides are on your chair, so you can go back and check his math. The other slides that we are showing today, we will make available to via an email to everybody who registered for this event today. So this next panel, we're going to have two panels today. The first panel, the intent is to introduce you to some of the innovations that people have been thinking about in the interim housing space. It's interesting that you're going to hear that these ideas and these companies or ideas have been around for less than 10 years, which shows that this is a pretty recent development. So the first panel is going to be an introduction to these ideas. The second panel, we will have a slightly different configuration of people to talk about, all right, knowing what we know about the goals ahead of us and some of the ideas that are floating out there, what are some of the challenges that the city and the county and our local officials might encounter as they try to meet this goal? And what is it that we should be aware of as citizens, as advocates, and maybe even people who have a role to help? So in this first panel, we're going to be meeting with our friends from Safe Parking, Culver City representing Safe Camping, Pallet Shelter, and Life Arc, two options for tiny home villages. And I'm gonna try to lead them through a conversation that's gonna touch upon these things: their origin story, where did these ideas come from, what are some of the first applications of these ideas, what are some of the cost variables associated with these solutions. From a siting perspective, what are the ideal kinds of sites, configurations, location, size, et cetera, for siting? The demographics, who typically is served by these different options. And then if we have time, we might talk about a successful case study coming out of these, coming out of our friends here. So we're going to start with safe parking with Matt, because this is the first place people sometimes end if they've had a housing insecurity and lose their apartment and they end up living in their car. So Matt, let's talk about where this idea came from and where it started, and a little bit about where you are located right now. And I'm going to have some photos here that we can walk through for people who have maybe never seen what safe parking looks like.
Hello. Can you play me? Yep. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. I want to also thank Hollywood Forward, thank our hosts here at Television City and the Hollywood Chamber. I'm humbled as a representative of this fairly new organization, but I would have to say a fairly powerful organization as well. So Safe Parking LA is not a new concept. Safe parking programs have been around for years. One of the first and original programs got started up in Santa Barbara, so a little bit north of us. And it's a little bit of a different model where folks were understanding that there was a need. There were people that were experiencing vehicular homelessness in their community, and there were underutilized spaces that could be places for safety, for security, that could be legal, that could provide community. And so the folks up there decided, why don't we use some of our overnight lots that on business or private property that just aren't in use overnight. And so people were coming and going. There was no real formality to the process. And the model worked. People would come in at night. They would lay their head to rest. They would talk to their neighbors, get to know their community. And it was also a place of healing. People would transition out of their cars into a more stable environment as a result of their engagement with this program. And so Safe Parking LA itself sort of is a continuation of that model. We are joined here by one of our co-founders, Emily, in the back. Thank you so much, Emily. It's good to see you. And the program itself was conceived within the faith community. So the original Safe Parking lot took place on Leo Beck Temple's site over in the Beverly Hills, more like Sunset area. And at that point, it was a fledgling operation. Very similar. Folks were just kind of coming and going at that point. And there was real juice behind this. People were actually being activated, getting involved. The community was engaged. And from there, it's grown. And the program itself, we've grown from an original site of about 10 to 15 cars all the way to 194. So we are a niche program, but we are the largest provider of safe parking opportunities for people that are experiencing homelessness here in Los Angeles County.
And I'm going to show a couple more photos here for those who have never visited a safe parking lot. I think there's one more after this. Are all of your sites in Los Angeles City?
That is correct. So we currently operate 6 sites throughout the city of Los Angeles, but we serve community members that are not only from the city of LA, not only from the county of Los Angeles, but are regionally based. We have folks coming from eastern counties, from northern counties to access our services.
Great. So Aramis, we met in Culver City. We did a tour of the safe camping site, which is called a wellness site, right? So Aramis is we consider the resident expert on this notion of creating safe camping on a public lot or a city lot. So tell us where the origin of this idea came for you in Culver City, Aramis, and where did you look to find out who else is doing this? Because I'm surprised we don't have more safe camping lots in Los Angeles.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm the assistant to the city manager for the city of Culver City. And I have the pleasure of working with an amazing team that are very innovative, and our city council is amazing. And that's really where it starts. Our city council back in 2018 actually brought forth a combat homelessness action plan for our city. So a lot of the ideas, a lot of the money that went forward to our project came from that. So it actually started back in 2018. Fast forward, everyone lived through COVID in 2020, and then we saw spikes in homelessness and all types of things in communities. So in 2021 is when the city decided to really look at our homeless population and figure out ways to get them off of the street and get them the services that they need. So fast forward to 2022, we're coming out of COVID. We're offering services like hand washing stations, restrooms availability. We're offering partnerships with our local churches as far as food banks and all types of different solutions for somewhat immediate problems as far as like food and hygiene, but we still had the component of housing was the issue. So through a lot of research, I spent a lot of hours researching different cities, unfortunately not in California. I looked at Colorado, I looked at Alaska. Alaska has an amazing safe camping program. And just looking at how other cities are focusing on interim housing and how it's something that you can stand up quickly. That was the main focus, was standing up quickly, because we know that the need is there. Culver City has always tried to use our motels for emergency housing, as far as like if there's a storm or if there's a hot weather event or things like that. But having someone be in interim housing for a number of days, more than 3 to 7 days, we hadn't done that before. So the idea for our safe camp came along. We went to the Urban Alchemy site, the Lincoln site. It's a county-run site actually for the County of Los Angeles. So we met with Urban Alchemy, we toured the site, and that's where our wheels kind of started turning as far as what would a site look like in Culver City. Once we did that, we picked our city lot. It's a city-owned lot, so we actually had some real estate that we could use. We kicked out, unfortunately, some of our renters for the parking lot, but we took half of a parking lot in an industrial area and we changed it into what is now called our Wellness Village. The Wellness Village houses up to 40 individuals. Each of the tent spaces, but we actually call them suites. The suites can house up to 2 to 3 people. The suite comes with a full-size bed, an actual bed that you would sleep in at your house, has a bed frame, has a mattress, sheet protector, sheets, comforters, all the things that you would have at your house. They also have luggage racks. They have toiletries. They actually have a laundry service. So the idea was to, one, allow someone that was coming off of the street to come into the Wellness Village and start healing themselves and feel like they were being supported by the Culver City community. And that's exactly what that space is. My particular background is Parks and Recs. So when you look at the Wellness Village, it actually reminds you of a wonderful, magical sleepaway camp, or glam camping, as people call it now. But we wanted to make sure that the space was welcoming to all. So we talked about, what were some of the barriers that a lot of times people say why they're not going into a shelter environment. So a lot of times shelters don't allow pets. So our village, all of our services that we offer in our city, they do have the ability to bring their animals with them. We also have partnerships with local pet stores and veterinarian clinics that can go and give them their shots for free and to supply food and beds and things for their animals.
So I'm going to stop you right there,
go ahead.
Aramis, so I can just get to everybody. We'll come back on some of those amenities in a
Sorry,
moment.
y'all.
Yeah, no worries. Elizabeth Rugg is here representing Pallet Shelter, kind of one of the first tiny home villages I think I was exposed to. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about how Pallet Shelter started, which I think was not too long ago, 2016, and it really has exploded throughout the country, but maybe also how you found your way to Los Angeles County initially.
Sure, of course. Happy to be here. Thanks so much for hosting this great event. Yeah, so Pallet Shelter, just as Carrie mentioned, started in 2016, 8 years ago, and it came about because the founders, Amy and Brady King, who owned a construction business at the time for permanent housing, they had a few employees that they learned were experiencing homelessness. And so just through having conversations and learning more of their stories, they learned more about how the sheltering system outside of the Seattle area, there's a lot of shortcomings. There were reasons why people weren't going into the shelter. And as they learned more, they're like, you know what, let's do something about this. You know, we know how to start businesses. And you guys are the experts. You know what could work, what needs to change. And so they started thinking, having more conversations, and what kind of from those conversations landed was we need to have individual sleeping units for people who have trauma, who don't want to go into a room full of strangers, who have pets, who want to stay with their partners. There could be an alternative way to shelter. We can do this better. And so they started up a workforce development company, a social enterprise, to create more job opportunities for people just like those first members of their previous construction business. And that's how Pallet Shelter came to be, as a social enterprise. And so we are first a workforce development company, fair chance employment, and then secondarily we manufacture our patented product, which are sleeping units, as well as hygiene units and community structures. And in terms of, our reach across the U.S., our first village was set up in Tacoma, Washington, before the pandemic, and then a few in Oregon. And then when the pandemic hit, this main thing for public health, needing to have private space, needing to be 6 feet apart, there was a great use and great need for our product, and now we're in 24 different states. We're in Canada as well, and in the city of Los Angeles, there are 13 different pallet villages, and across the county, there are 17. So that's a little bit of our reach and what we do.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And then Paul's with LifeArc, who's another kind of an innovative startup that we went and visited out in El Monte back in June. So Paul, give us a little bit of the origin story of LifeArc and the innovation that you've brought to the interim housing space.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be a part of this really important discussion. I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit named Illumination Foundation, which is we started in Orange County, and we pioneered the recuperative care program where we take the homeless discharges from hospital. It was a real necessary program, so we expanded into LA as well as Inland Empire. But one of the biggest issues as we were working to connect these very vulnerable population to ongoing care was really at the end connecting them to permanent housing. Because there, as we know, lack of availability of, and also the design of the existing housing units really weren't appropriate for our population. So we set out in search of modular solutions that could address the needs of our population and be able to produce units at a lower cost. In 2017, I met a gentleman, Charles Wee, who at the time was working on floating housing for the indigenous people of Amazon, the jungles of Amazon, not the Amazon we all know. But the reason why he has a cousin who's a missionary who is working with the indigenous people in the jungles of Amazon. And when he visited them, he saw how the people were flooded out of their homes about 9 months out of the year because of the river height fluctuation. So Charles, who was a very successful architect, he gave up his practice and decided to focus on developing floating housing for these for the population who were affected by water. When I met him, I was in search of homeless housing solution, and I saw that his concept would be very applicable for the need right here in our backyard, here in LA and in California. So I've been working with him since 2017 to bring this product to market. We worked because it's actually made out of plastic with foam insulation, which is why it floats. It's also very flammable. So going through all of the life safety certifications of passing the fire test, the seismic test. It took us over 4 years to ultimately get the material approved to be used as in construction. It's the first time that anyone was able to get plastic to be approved as the primary load-bearing material. We're all familiar with sticks, bricks, steel, concrete as the load-bearing material, but we were able to get certification to use plastic as the load-bearing material. And then we went to California HCD, Housing and Community Development, to get approval to become a factory-built housing, to build permanent housing using these modular structures. And our first proof of concept project, which is the project that Carrie mentioned in El Monte,
That's not
well, the previous slide. We built, that is the first project that we built to demonstrate that it's possible to use this plastic module to build permanent housing. But at the same time, we recognize the need for interim housing or shelter. So we further developed our modular system to be able to build shelter system. And we recently completed a 25 navigation center for the city of Azusa. That in itself really is a case study on how a city can accelerate a program to develop housing for the homeless. And then currently, as the councilwoman mentioned earlier, we're working on the interim housing project right here, right nearby at the corner of Midvale and Pico, which we hope to be able to finish hopefully by the end of this year or early next year.
Thank you, Paul. So I'm going to ask each of you, without going deeply into the weeds, but to just kind of elucidate the core costs, parameters associated with your solution. Maybe starting with you, Matt. I know that you mentioned you have an MOU with the City of LA that provides a nightly rate, which is not enough. But describe what that is and what you provide for that.
Sure. So Safe Parking LA is in under a contract with the City of Los Angeles. So the majority of our lots are on public space. They're on municipal lots. They're adjacent to libraries or parks. And we're able to actually keep the costs low by the grace of having our hosts let us stay on those lots overnight for free. So these contracts have allowed us to keep our costs low. And on top of that, we've been able to secure government contracts through LASA and through the City Administrative Office here in the City of LA. And so our lots are primarily funded through those contracts, which are given a bed rate, very similar to like an interim housing motel site. So per night, per space, we are given an amount of money. It's not sufficient. And so we have to aggressively pursue outside dollars through philanthropic means, through the generosity of individuals, corporations, and foundations. And the reason we do that is because we're not just an overnight program where people come and park. We provide the safety and the comfort of additional layered services that includes an on-site security officer for the duration of the program in the evening, as well as a restroom facility, an ADA accessible restroom facility and hand washing station. Additionally, on top of that, we do have case management on staff. So folks that enroll in our program are assigned a case manager that works directly with that person or households on establishing a housing stabilization plan that is unique because everybody experiences homelessness in different ways, right? If there was a silver bullet for this, I think we would have found it at this point. So the goal of our case management team is to provide actionable, collaborative, forward-thinking and positive momentum for people to hopefully leave their current situation and into a more positive and stable one after engaging with us. Additionally, folks that are living out of their cars face significant barriers that maybe our house neighbors that don't have, or that we wouldn't expect. Some of the upfront costs of things like a rental deposit, right, an auto repair, are incredibly challenging, are incredible barriers for our participants to respond to, right? The majority of our folks do have some sort of income, but that barrier can just be it's just so significant for folks that they would never be able to do that. And so Safe Parking LA is able to step in and provide that direct cash infusion for those folks, because sometimes it is just a light touch, right? You just need to get somebody indoors and they're already working and they're good to go. So we actually see ourselves as an upstream solution for a lot of folks that logically will be stepping into their cars as their first experience into homelessness when they lose their stable housing. It's only logical you're going to go into your next available shelter, which is most frequently your vehicle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. So Aramis, you've got the perfect case study now because you've just done this in Culver City. What did it cost? What does it take to pull this off?
$3.1 million.
To do what?
So since we were at a parking lot, we had to bring in a lot of the services. So the parking lot was not equipped with water. So we had to get a contract with the water department to bring a line in and things of that nature. The parking lot did not have power. So therefore we had to rent generators. We're still renting generators. That's about $30,000 a month to rent those generators. So we do have a SCE contract coming in. So hopefully we'll have power by the end of the year. The service provider is probably the most important part about this entire project, and that's Urban Alchemy. So that's a good chunk of the money. It's about $2 million a year. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They provide the case management. They provide the food. They provide the supplies. They provide transportation to our clients. So they are pretty much the one-stop shop that we have on site at this time. So we're heavy on the case management side, and everything else is more so the city went ahead and did I guess you could call it the construction of the site. So the pallets that were specially made to fit the tents, we supplied the tents, we supplied the electricity, we supply the restrooms. We actually have full restrooms as opposed to general porta potties, because we felt that the individuals that were at the site would need to go into a full service restroom that has a shower, that has a sink, that has a mirror where they can brush their teeth, and a toilet, as opposed to going into a porta potty and then leaving that porta potty and going to another shower unit that may be 5 or 6 feet from that first porta potty. So as we were developing the site, we spent $3.1 million. And that's our average each fiscal year at this time. This is all funded by the general fund. There are no grants. We do rely on some of our community partners. Starbucks is great. We have an Italian restaurant that provides meals once a week, a family-style meal for everyone that's there. Our local churches also do events. We have yoga classes for our individuals, and those are all brought to those individuals by our community partners for free. So it's definitely a community effort, but as far as the setup, $3.1 million.
Thank you for revealing your trade secret. I think Aramis is willing to help consult other locations on this. Elizabeth, with pallet shelter, I think the story has always been that the shelter alone is not that much money. It's like, what does the locality do to install it and to improve the space where it's going to be? So can you, in just 2 minutes, kind of tease out the parameters of costs for pallet shelter communities?
Sure. Yeah, that you're exactly right. So our product is meant and designed to be temporary. It's our goal is that it is the most affordable piece of the whole project, so that you can be saving the rest of the budget for those important wraparound services, and then, of course, saving the municipal budget to be able to build more permanent housing, because that's the goal. We're just a stopgap, dignified solution in the interim. So our S2 sleeper, 70 square foot, that's our single occupancy unit, that starts at $15,900. And then we have a larger sleeping cabin that is 120 square foot, and all these numbers and of their dimensions come from Appendix P for the state of California. And that 120 square foot cabin, that starting point is $20,600. And in terms of like a full project, that really depends on the price point for the the architect and the GC and the other elements that are a part of determining those site costs. But some good rules of thumb to keep those costs down low is in the site selection, right? So picking that place, picking that spot that already has a sewer line, utility line, electrical lines that can be easily tapped, just like Aramis was mentioning. And one that's relatively flat, not gonna have to do much grading, because our structures, you don't need to put down foundations. We can just set it up right there if it's relatively flat. And some other things for costs is bearing in mind proximity to what are the neighboring areas. How can you keep it private and safe? For pallet, we have dignity standards actually that all of our customers are contractually obligated to make sure that what we're putting into the world is a habitable, dignified environment. So we want to make sure that there's safety measures, food, water, and hygiene, as well as supportive services that are on every single one of our sites.
Thank you. And I know all of that's available on your website also. And in the second panel, we're going to talk a little bit about how this can become more complicated when working with a local jurisdiction wanting to install a tiny home village. Paul, LifeArc is not necessarily intended to be interim housing. The way Elizabeth said, these are temporary structures. LifeArc has the potential to be permanent. But since we're talking about interim housing, how would you describe the cost parameters of LifeArc as a solution?
Yes, LifeArc is meant to be permanent, but we're also able to use, because of the modularity, each module, I see a picture, that is a single unit that we're using in the West LA Midvale Pico project. It happens to be 2 modules that we're combining, one a dry module, one a wet module. Wet module being the one, it has the bathroom, it has all of the plumbing, etc. What we do is, because each module is 8 feet by 8 feet, we use that to design a project. But it's built the same way that the permanent housing that we built at El Monte. It is approved at the state level by HCD under the Factory Built Housing Program. And what we provide is a turnkey solution. I believe pallet is you provide the flat packages to go to a project. We actually factory assemble them within our factory. We finish them, including drywall, paint, all of the fixtures, completely finished in our factory, delivered to the project site where we attach them to the foundation, connect them to the utilities. So it's a different model. We're coming down from the permanent space to provide interim solution. Only difference between our permanent and interim solution is how we attach it to the foundation. Permanent in El Monte, we have to attach it to a permanent foundation, which is concrete. For interim housing solution, like what we're doing at Midvale and as well as at Azusa, it sits on asphalt. So it's a different type of a foundation system, which are again, all approved at whether at state or the local level. So how we price it currently, like the 2 modules we have there, a dry module is approximately about $35,000, fully finished, assembled, delivered, installed. And then a wet module is approximately $40,000, fully assembled, delivered, installed. So if we use 2 modules for a unit like we have in Midvale, that's about $75,000. But that includes all installation at prevailing wage, which again is a big factor when you talk about local construction process. But I think the key to cost is standardization. And I think that's why there's a lot of modular companies that are starting up, because we all know housing cost is really rising dramatically. And we really believe to try to lower costs, we have to begin to standardize different aspects of the construction process. Every home that we build, every building that we build is a custom-built product today. But as you begin to standardize, we'll see opportunities to begin to use mass production to begin to drive prices down.
This will be the last question for this panel, just because we got a little bit of a late start. But the question would be, and especially because this audience might be thinking like, I've got an idea where I think this could go or how we could help. our city, our county, our mayor. Could you just, each of you, describe again what is kind of an ideal site location? And by that I'm, proximity to services, outside of the urban core, inside the urban core, even perhaps size in terms of economies of scale. Can you have 5 safe parking spaces, or should it be more like 25? And also public versus private, because you did mention, Matt, that virtually all of yours are free public, although I think you may have one coming on board, or you got Helms Bakery, which is private. So if you can each talk about what are the ideal site locations so that all these really innovative people can be thinking of, where should we put one of these in our community?
Sure. So safe parking lots just need a parking lot. That's pretty much it. So there's thousands of those throughout LA. It ain't hard. What is ideal, though, is if these lots can be geographically based in communities that have emergent need, right? There is a community of people that are living out of their vehicles that need these resources, because even if you're mobile and in your vehicle, you will stay close to your networks, which is your friends, your family, your doctor, right? Your case manager. And so we would like to see safe parking programming more ubiquitous throughout the region, right? There are other providers. Safe Parking LA is mostly in the city of, currently only in the city of LA, but there are other providers, but there's just not enough, We did see some really encouraging numbers this year when it came to the point in time count, but there's a lot of work to be done. It's a moment of pause, and a moment of reflection, and a moment to try to keep that momentum. Another thing that would be very helpful is if we have on-site sanitation and security on-site would be amazing too, because that is a significant cost for Safe Parking LA. And anytime we can get that really sweetens the deal, and we're really able to use those funds in ways to serve our participants better. Additionally, it doesn't matter if it's private or public space. Obviously, if you're going to go into contract with a large bureaucratic entity like a municipality, that might take a little bit more time and energy and for lack of a better term, red tape to jump through. But we'll make it work anywhere, as long as it's a space that isn't being utilized overnight and it has some amenities. We're good to go. And I do want to answer the previous question too about just cost generally. Mm-hmm. So we're very low cost, but we're also a nonprofit, right? We're there to serve folks. So the contracts that we do get, they range from about $40 to $50 a night, which is about 65% of our cost. So we have to actively almost double our revenue streams to actually operate our program and to make it successful. Because anybody can just open up a lot and let people come in and that's it. But that isn't providing a pathway out of that situation. So why we're so successful and why we're able to get 1 out of 2 people that come through our program into a more stable situation is because we're able to layer on the additional services like case management, like client financial assistance, to really ensure that we're giving people the best opportunity to take that next step on their own and in lockstep with our work at Safe Parking LA.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
I agree with everything. I just want to add one more just in terms of whetting your imagination is, 1/3 of an acre, not much, can host a interim shelter village that serves 25 to 30 people. I mean, just imagine how much of an impact that could be. If there's an odd-shaped parcel that's 1/3 of an acre, let that be, serving an interim purpose. And the other thing to kind of bear in mind is that a lot of our model is being used and put on parcels that are going to be developed, but aren't right now. It's in the interim serving for shelter. So as you guys hear, there's a lot of projects that are in the pipeline. They haven't got their permitting. They haven't got their entitlements. So they haven't even broken ground. Allow it in the interim time to be serving for shelter. That's what the city of Denver is doing. We have repurposed a number of their parcels that's from their city portfolio that's going to be developed, but right now it's serving as a pallet shelter.
Paul.
I really agree with Elizabeth in that if you look around the city, how many small dirt lots that's been sitting there collecting junk for 10, 20, even 30 years, developers can't touch it because the parcel may be too small, or it may be a lot of grade, there's so many lots like that. And if we're really trying to meet the needs to solve this interim housing need by LA 28, we really have to look at these underutilized small lots that are really an eyesore, really. I think if you replace that with a dignified interim housing that's helping to solve the homeless problem, I think it's a great use of these lots on an interim basis. As Elizabeth said, it can be used for other purposes down the road, but the interim housing can be removed. Just like, our project on Midvale, it's meant to be interim. I think the expectation is it will be there for less than 10 years, and it can be moved so that property can either go back to being a parking lot or for whatever purpose. So really focusing on these underutilized lots for this purpose is really important.
Thank you. And Aramis, bring it home.
Everything that they said, that's it, drop the mic. No. As a city, we were able to use city lots, and that's always great. But as we know that land is very scarce around LA County, it's really important to, yes, look at those empty lots, partner, and partner. Because a lot of times businesses may be closed 3 months out of the year. So during those 3 months, maybe put up a safe parking lot. Maybe put up some pallet shelters, maybe put up some modules. So really looking at your landscape and also get your communities involved. Where our wellness village is located, it's in an industrial area that's close to our high school, close to our middle school, and close to an elementary school. We had a lot of pushback in that community because they were really unsure about having loads of these unhoused people walking through their neighborhood. But as time went on, as we continued to have those community conversations, they understood what the city was trying to do. They got to actually meet some of the individuals that were set to go into that project, and they could have answer those hard questions that they had from the people that were going to live in that particular village. And that made a really big difference. But yeah, we definitely need to think outside of the box when it comes to interim housing, and then also using mixtures. We actually have pallet on our campus. Initially, our city was looking at a straight pallet facility, but when we were looking at the numbers and looking at how fast we wanted to stand it up, we went with tents, but then we also wanted to introduce the community to the pallet structure. So we added some pallets there for offices. But now, since the community knows, like, oh, that's what a pallet shelter looks like now. Oh, it doesn't look like, a little cardboard box. Oh, you can paint it. Oh, you can. So introducing multiple ways of interim housing on one project is also another good solution. We do have a motel master leasing program, and a part of that motel master leasing program, we're going to have a few spaces for a safe parking lot. So yeah, right, that's coming soon. So just thinking outside the box, being innovative is really important, and your community partners are probably the most important part about this whole scenario.
Aren't they a wealth of information? Just thank you, all four of you. I hope everybody is germinating some ideas on how to amplify these ideas. We're going to do a panel shift. Two of them are coming back, Elizabeth and Paul. I'm going to invite up the other panels. Give you about 5 minutes to grab a water or a snack, bathroom outside, check your text messages, and we'll do panel number 2. Thank you, all of you.